I wanted to introduce our very first conversation that we're having today for the horses who made us better with none other than Celeste Lazaris, who is a very good friend of mine in America and the founder and creator of the Balance Through Movement method, which is probably the key pivotal point of my horse ownership revolution, I would say. So it's very fitting that Celeste is the first person off the mark for me to begin this series with. So thank you, Celeste, for agreeing to chat with me today.
You're so welcome. I'm very excited.
It has been a ride.
It has been a ride.
So what I really wanted to get out of these stories is a series about all of the horses who have changed how we think, how we feel, how we care, how we manage. And I know you have some epic tales to go along with that. So very keen to hear a little bit more about what's shaped you into the horsewoman and biomechanical nerve nerd that you have become, that you continue to share with the rest of the world. So can you tell me about some of the horses, and I'll let you take your pick for who you want to kick off the stories with. But
Sure.
How did you meet them? What were their biggest challenges? Talk to me about that.
I think in terms for shaping me into the horseman that I am today, the first one definitely has to be Kid, my old timer, who kind of went with me forever. I got him when I was not quite 18. I was just a young baby. And I always joke that he was the first thing that I ever manifested because I saw a picture of his daddy on a Arabian Times and I was like, I have to have one of his babies one day. And then I was able to get one, and he was gray and the size that I wanted, and he was everything that I ever wanted. Got him. We bought him sight unseen, went to go pick him up, and we hated each other. It was really funny. We did not hit it off right away. We butted heads really bad. He was about 18 months old when I got him, and it was just really funny. And so we really had to work at it. And 1 year, it was like about a year and a half in, he got really sick. They couldn't figure out what it was. We did all the blood draws. It seemed like colic, but it wasn't colic. And he laid down, and he was down for longer than he should have been to stay alive. And I just stayed with him in his stall. I almost got fired from my job. I refused to get up and leave and eat. People had to bring me stuff, and I just sat with him. And when he came out of that, it was kind of like that bond of like, okay, like I think we're going to make it. He was the guinea pig for every fad and every clinic and every new thing that I was trying. He did everything. I wasn't financially afforded to have, horses for different disciplines. And so anything that I wanted to do, he had to do it. So I'm a speed demon at heart. And so he had to do gaming and barrel racing and mounted shooting. And then what else did we do? We did show jumping, dabbled in a couple dressage shows. I found that to be very boring. We did extreme trail. we did everything, and we won at everything that we did. Like, it was so cool. And we were just like rock solid. And so I never wanted to teach. I was never one that really liked educating. I just wanted to go out and have my fun. It's also important to note too, and I have to remind myself of this frequently, is that I had no social life. I did not really have a relationship. I had Kid. I didn't have, everybody else went out and partied after work, and I went to the barn. And so like all of the like development and everything that I poured into him, it was just, he was all I had. He was it. And so, now I've got a global business and 3 human children. And I'm like, God, I just never, am I ever going to get to develop these horses? I don't know, but it was a different time for me for sure. And so it started, people would compliment us all the time. They'd be like, hey, do you give lessons? Like, you keep kicking everybody's ass. Will you teach us lessons? And I'm like, I don't teach lessons. I don't do that. But then I finally caved, and I started giving people lessons on Kid, and he gave the lessons, not me, really. And so, that was just kind of how that went. And then I had done colt starting in my foster home and did a lot of things with them. And so I took on colt starting again. But again, I was colt starting with Kid, so it was kind of cheating. And again, now that he's gone, I'm like, I went so much further with horses faster when you were here. Like, maybe I'm not as good at this. I don't know. But yeah, he was my everything. And anyway, flash forward. So I started training and competing and more, and having students that competed, and I kind of like built up that performance brand because of Kid, because he was the campaign that everybody wanted. And they're like, I want to ride like you. I want my horse to look like Kid. So he was my thing. And then one year he just started feeling off and he just wasn't right. And I was like very quick to the vet, very quick to all kinds of things. And I was like, what's going on? And then around this time was when my whole like ego eradicating thing happened with the body work too, right? Where like this body worker comes in and she's like, we do body work. And I'm like, I don't even get massages, lady. Like my horses aren't getting massages. This is a quack. This is complete bullshit. And she's like, but you're really known for problem horses. And like, give me the worst one in your barn and I'll do it for free. And I'm like, yeah, I sure, whatever. So I pull him out. I mean, I was polite. They pulled him out. She works on him. The next day, noticeably different behavior. And I'm like,
Really?
yeah, but I was also like in my 20s, like early 20s. And I was like, yeah, but we had like a really good session the day before too. So like, was it her or was it, I was in that very like, maybe, but maybe not, So, but I do care about the horses. So the next time she came out, I was like, I'll pay this time. And maybe work on two different ones and we'll see. Sure as shit.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. And I was like, okay, maybe it's pain and not behavior.
I'm listening. That's
I'm like,
literally how I felt about
yeah.
you.
Yeah. Cause you're like, cause when you see it, you're like, you can try to like, what, but you can't, especially if you're actually listening to the horse and you actually give a shit. Like at some point you're like, okay, maybe not. But in my personal and professional career, there was never a mention. I mean, and not like Linda Tellington Jones and those things had been around for sure by then, but it wasn't like it is now, and we didn't have the internet. We didn't have all of this like consumery information of stuff. And so I had never been told that the horse could be uncomfortable and that's why they were behaving shitty. I just got all these bronc rides and I just had to outride him and I'm a hell of a jockey, so I could manipulate him out of it. And then I'm fair and I'm kind. And so it was pretty quick to get him through things most of the time. And it's like in hindsight, I was getting them through it, but I was basically just putting them into different compensation patterns is all I was doing. But I didn't know. So when this whole thing happened, it was a very new world, I guess. Like it was a vantage point that I had never considered and never heard about. But I was like, all right, I'll play with this a little bit. Because a horse being in pain should have heat and swelling and be limping. Right? That's a horse that's in pain.
Yep.
Not
yep. Unless it's limping, it's not uncomfortable.
Yeah, totally. Right. And they don't cry and they don't make sounds like normal animals do when they're uncomfortable. So you don't, like that metric's a little bit tricky too. So anyway, this like kind of blew my world open. And that same year is when kids started getting off. So I had her work on him a couple times and same thing, but nothing was really changing. And had a chiro that I really loved came out and she worked on him. And then she was like, I think he has EPM. And I was like, so back then, this was, how old am I? This was probably 17, 18 years ago. This is a minute ago. So back then, when you had an EPM diagnosis, you put the horse down. There was no.
Oh, really?
Marquis was Marquis was on the market, but everybody, at least in my world, everybody was like, you get an EPM diagnosis, you shoot him. There's nothing out of it. And so she tells me that, and my heart, like, just fall. And I was like, no. We're not doing that. But nothing else was working. So I went through, it took me 4 vets. And the only reason why the last vet actually did the EPM test is because he started dating my chiropractor. And she was like, you're going to do the test or I'm not going to bang you, essentially. And so he did the test because the vets would come out because he wasn't neuro enough, like he was off.
Okay.
And I knew he was off. And it felt like this horse that could do, halt to canter transitions and perfect pirouettes and had all this balance. And we could do 3 tempi changes. Like he had so much balance. And all of a sudden if I would explain it to the vets, I was like, I feel like I'm on like the Slinky hot dog from Toy Story where like his hind end's back here and his front end's up here, but like they're not. He's so delayed, like he's not on my aids at all, and he's not like this. Like this is not normal. So he wasn't neuro enough for them to justify doing it, but they ended up. So this last vet finally does it. His numbers are through the roof. We just did the titers. Numbers are through the roof, and we're friends because he's dating my friend, and so they like have me come out to the bar to like basically tell me like I'm going to buy you a drink. Like the numbers came back really high. Like we need to put him down. And I'm like, no, I can't, what are there any other options? What can we do? And he was like, I mean, we can try to treat him, but it's really expensive. It doesn't really work. He's never going to be the same, like quality of life. And I'm like, I was going through a divorce at the same time. This has all happened at the same time. Like my fucking marriage blew up. I burned my training business down. Kid got diagnosed. The whole thing. Very much one of those years. And I was like, he can't die right now. Like, he's my lifeline. I'm sorry. This is selfish. Like, I can't. We're not doing this. Like, we have to at least try. So we get the medication. We try it. And he started recovering. But on throughout the recovery process, he started showing symptoms of like hind end nervy stuff and like just kind of, he's still really ataxic, not really putting his pieces together. And dude, if I didn't throw myself into every rehab imaginable, like pulls, hills, backing, all of the normal shit that you see, the PSOA system, like you name it, I've done it. That's why I don't judge when people are at it. I'm like, yep, nope, me. Designed and sold my own budgie rigging system that seemed to be helping him at the time. And we ended up actually doing fine. Like he maintained it. So I think he was, God, the math is hard. I think he was around 10-ish when he died. Somebody that doesn't like me is going to watch this and they're going to do the math and they're going to be like, she's lying. I don't remember, but he was old. He was double digits at some point. And
we'll
then
talk about the haters a little bit later on.
He was double digits. He was at least 10. And then he made it all the way to 22. And the reason why he died was because of melanomas. It wasn't because of the EPM. He was fine with the EPM. We ended up retreating him a couple of times. But so he started me on the whole rehab journey. And I was learning the body work so that I could work on him really specifically because he needed all the time. Like I was working on him every day and like, what can I do to help him?
And so just for the Aussies we don't have EPM here, it's sort of similar to like a viral meningitis in humans, isn't it? Like attacks this. Yeah.
Yeah. It goes, so it goes into the brain and it goes through and it can happen so in Washington where we were living, most horses have it. It's just whether or not it crosses the blood-brain barrier to then what it affects it. They carry it because and this isn't the same for everywhere, but at least in Washington, so possums carry it predominantly and they shit all over the hay fields. And so it goes all over to the hay fields and then the horses eat the hay and then they get EPM. Now, whether or not that crosses the blood-brain and they actually contract it and are symptomatic, that's a different thing. But most horses in the Pacific Northwest will test positive for it if you do a titer. So
wow.
Yeah, it's wild. And so that was just a really hard, heavy journey. So that's what got me into rehab in general. And then, I'm going through that ego eradication of like also behavior is now more pain than it is actual behavior. And if I actually give a shit about the horses the way that I say that I give a shit about the horses, I need to stop training the way that I'm training because my lens was flawed. So I started trying to tell the people in my circle about these findings that I'm having and these different ways that I'm wanting to do things. And, they're all great people and it's no judgment to them. I get it. But and I'm sure it was really hard for them because all of a sudden I was changing and I was also changing because I was going through a divorce. Yeah. My boundaries were getting shifted and like everything, I just changed. And that's really hard for people to deal with. But they were all competitors. We went to shows every month. Like that was our thing. Like we went and we showed and we hauled out and we competed. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I don't think you should be competing this horse. I think we should not be trying to get this jump course. I think we should not be trying to get this dressage test. I think we should not be trying to get these things that you're trying to get memorized. And I think we should go back to fixing some of these things that I think are causing some pain. And they didn't want to. They wanted to go to the show. They wanted to compete. And they fired me and they went to a trainer that would give them the answers that they wanted. And that's just kind of what happened. And it dwindled down and down and down. And finally I was like, you kind of got to pick one. And I was trying to have a foot in both worlds and it just wasn't working. I was just coming up against like one ego death after another on me, one fallout with a client after another. It was messy and it was hard. And finally I had to be like, okay, I quit. I'm not going to train anymore. And maybe I want to even ride anymore. And I don't even know if we should be riding horses actually, like with all this information that I'm getting, like, fuck, like, why are we even doing this? Is that a whole mental breakdown? And along when that was happening was when Dragon came into my life, who, was horse lesson number 2, who's just like, he was actually great when I bought him. I bought him as a stallion. I bought him to be a breeding stallion with my ex. Like we were going to have a breeding program and it was like this lifelong thing that I always wanted. And then I had the divorce and I had everything and I had to sell I sold all of my horses except for Kid and Ari's mom. And the only reason why I didn't sell Ari's mom is because I had a sweet client that agreed to lease her from me so that I didn't have to sell her. So she just took over paying for everything for her for me. But I sold everybody, including Dragon, because I couldn't, you know. And then they gelded him, found out he was a crypt orchid. And instead of going up and doing the abdominal surgery that you're supposed to do when a horse is a crypt orchid, for the record, that should have been, I should have known that he was a crypt orchid. They went through the whole sales, that the whole thing was a disaster from the breeding standpoint. So anyway, that was a long shot, but they didn't do the abdominal surgery. Instead, the vet was like, and no knock on country vets. Most of the time, they're actually better vets than most vets. But this one, I don't really know what he was thinking, but he put his whole forearm up into the thing to like fiddle around to find where the other testy was and yanked it out. Allegedly. I wasn't there, but he bragged about it to everybody about like this really crazy cool thing that he did and just like, you know, ripped this shit out of him. As you can imagine. So Dragon, when I bought him, nobody knew he was a stallion. He was so well behaved. I could take him past mares on crutches. He never talked to them. He never looked. He was a stallion, so he was like, whatever, but he never was inappropriate. He was never aggressive. He was so well in his mind. That happened to him. And the lady that bought him called me and she was like, he's psycho, like completely psycho. Like he won't stop screaming at mirrors. He won't stop pacing. He's like doing all this crazy shit. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like my little like Rowan was only 4, I think, when I had him, and like Rowan could lead him all around. And so I went out to see him and I was like, he is in so much pain. And eventually the story comes out about the gelding. And I'm like, I feel like something with that. And then that's what got me on the gelding scars and sciatic pain and femoral nerve pain and all of those things, because I was like this, because I knew him and I'm like, that's not him. Like he doesn't do this. And it's because of this trauma that happened. So anyway, flash forward to we were doing lessons and he was doing pretty well and he was kind of coming along. She was a little green. Probably should not have had him at this point. It was fine how he was before, but like he had gotten to a place that I don't think it just wasn't a good match. And she ended up bringing him to a barrel race that I was competing at, and it was just like it was like a Halloween fun. It wasn't like a real one. It was just a fun show. And she brought him for some reason, and he got loose on the grounds because I don't know. I don't understand humans. So she brings him, he gets loose on the ground. Nobody can handle him. I end up catching him. I'm working with him a little bit and I'm like, I've got students that are getting ready to run. I've got to go in there and run. Like I'm the trainer. I'm supposed to be out there doing stuff. And it's like, and this is just like a fun thing. Like I said, I had stopped training, but it was just like everybody gets together for this Halloween show and drink beers and runs around like an idiot. So I'm there and so I hand him off to her and she's like, will you, now that he's getting calm, will you take him in the runs? Will you like I already paid for the stuff. Like, will you just ride him around in there? And I'm like, no, Celeste, say no. Say no. This is a bad idea. And it's just like repetitively. And I'm like, sure. I don't know. I don't do that as much anymore. What's the worst that's gonna happen? I'll get flipped over on and get my arm broke. It's fine. Which is what happened. So I take my off the track thoroughbred in and we do our run. There's one horse in between my run on Win and then this horse, Dragon. And I go in and we're doing it. And he's actually doing really well. Like I took him through a pole. I got to find this video. I should send it to you. It's so cute. He's never seen poles. He's never seen anything before. And I take him in and all of a sudden I look like the elvish queen in Lord of the Rings. And he's just flying lead changes because he's an Andalusian and they're fun. And he's just naturally talented. It was really cute. And everybody's like, oh, he's so pretty. So he's doing really well. And then we're on like one of the last ones. And I'm in there's like a little box that you're kind of sitting in to go in. And there's all these horses around and he's, really trying to be a good boy, but you can see that he's just really struggling with it. And she's holding him. I go to swing up on him and I don't usually pick up the reins when I swing up. I just swing up and I'm just there. And I went to swing up on him and she snatched his bridle really hard and she had the halter on him and she'd put the stud chain on and I just wasn't paying attention. And she snatched the bridle and then yanked the stud chain and he freaked out because of all of the contact. Because humans. So he freaks out from all the contact and he goes up and she pulls harder. So he goes up harder against her. And then I'm like screaming at her to let go, which was probably shouldn't have let go for a minute, but she did, because I was just like, drop it, like let go, let go, let go, because I could tell what was going on. And she lets go, and the tension allowed him to flip over. So he flips over on top of me. I'm in a barrel racing saddle, and the horns are like really tiny. They're not like big roping horns. And the horn got caught. There was a what do they call it? Like the wood, like the pallets. It was like a pallet wall, and so the little horn got stuck in between the pallets, so he was stuck on top of me. And my kids are in the arena waiting for me to run, and I just hear everybody screaming, and it just kind of went black, and I felt like this huge bubble. It was just the most surreal experience. But he had contorted his body in such a way to not smash me. And like, there's no, from the outside, everybody watching it, because I was stuck under him for almost a solid minute. That's a long time. And like,
Yeah.
from the outside, everybody knew I was dead. There's no way. Like, there's absolutely no feasible way she is making this out, at least not a paraplegic. First, the wood finally snaps. And I don't know how he did it, but he got up off of me. And the only thing that I came away with was a black eye, and my arm had snapped in half, but it wasn't from him. It was from the impact and then the weight of him coming down. It just went like that. But nothing about him. Like, he somehow magically stayed off of me. Like, he saved my life, full stop. So I get rushed to the ER. What ends up happening is they just punished him for it. So they ended up handing him off to this guy that loads him up in the trailer, apparently beat the shit out of him in the trailer, to the point that Dragon like then got aggressive and bit him back, thank God. So now he's a man eater, and he's this terrible thing. So he's attacking people, and it's this whole thing. I'm like, well, yeah, because you cornered him, you beat the shit out of him, he just flipped over on his best friend. Like, this is a traumatic thing. And Danny and I had only been dating like 6 months at the time. So my skater boy musician boyfriend, who has never even put a halter on a horse, who does not do anything ranchy, I was on the couch, and I'm like, it was the day after, 2 days after the accident. And I was like, something's wrong with him. Will you go check on him? And he's like, oh, I can like call. And I was like, no. I was like, I know this is really weird. Will you go drive out there and just look at him? And he was like, yeah, sure, I'll go do that. You met Danny. He's pretty like happy-go-lucky guy. And
Yeah.
he drove out
He
there.
probably thought you were mad, but he would have been like, okay.
Whatever. It's fine. So he drives out there in his skinny jeans and Vans. And he couldn't find Dragon, and he went looking, and he was in this like back run all by himself, isolated at the back of the facility, like mud almost up to his knees, no water, no food. And so he comes back to the owner, and he's like, why is he back there? Like, he doesn't have any water, he doesn't have anything. Like, can we at least give him some water? And she's like, well, the vet's coming out today to put him down. And he's like, and then this is where it went bad. She said, don't tell Celeste. To which, as you can imagine, Danny starts laughing pretty maniacally, and he's like, yeah, no, that's the worst thing that I've ever heard in my life. We're absolutely telling her. And he's like, why are you putting him down? She's like, he's attacking everybody, he's violent, he's this, he's that. And he's like, I was just petting him. Like, there's nothing wrong with him. So he tells her, without telling me, without doing anything, he said, cancel the vet. You're gonna have to pay the euthanasia fee anyway. I'll save you the money. He's like, cancel the vet. We'll find somewhere for him to go. He's coming home with us. We'll figure it out. And then he comes home and he tells me, and I'm like, cool. So like, we just saved each other's life. We're good. And there's a whole long story that like of back and forth. I ended up selling him again, and then I got him back again after like Mexican dancing bullshit. And basically, it's just a really horrible saga of, for some reason, we were supposed to be in each other's lives, and I kept trying to be like, I can't do this and be a responsible adult. And then he just kept getting in horrible situations, and then I would get him back. So the second time I got him back, I was like, that's it. You're with me or you're bust. And he was so fried. If you even like picked up a whip, he would just start foaming at the mouth, biting the air, pee-offing. Just so he was terrified of everything. He wasn't aggressive, but he was hard to handle. And so I just put it in my will that if something happened to me, he got put down, and he was with me forever. And that was that. And I went deep down the gelding scar work with him. I went deep down the nervous system regulation stuff with him. What we did with Bailey, I learned with him because of that. He was so lame behind, and nobody could figure out. We did x-rays, like we did all kinds of things, and nobody could figure out why he was so lame. And so one day I sat out there, I just watched him for hours, like pretty much the whole day. And he would be super lame unless he was having like flirting with the mares because he was the most hormonal thing you've ever seen. Now that he's been gelded, it was very odd.
And can we just pause on lame? When you
Yeah.
say lame now, so I know my eyes have definitely changed quite significantly over the course of hanging out with you, and I blame you entirely for this.
I'll take it.
I don't, and I know that you're the same, but I don't see lame doesn't have to be hopping or head bobbing, or it can be any sort of irregularity. And I think
Yeah.
as a industry, we get really worked up over when someone says, "Oh, your horse is lame," or "It looks
Mhm.
lame." People
Unsound.
get very offended and very, yeah, very defensive. So when you look back now on the lame,
Mhm.
what are we talking about? Head bobbing, or are we talking about
Mhm.
there was just something that you were like, "That's lame and it's not right," but I don't actually know? Talk to me a bit more about that.
Yeah. So with kids, it was very subtle. Like it was not. It was not a. Gonna smash in my wall. It wasn't a. It was super subtle. Like it's not something that would have been qualified as lame. With Dragon, he would head bob. He would kind of have like a weird like hitch in his hind. Both of it,
A hip
it would be bilateral, and it wouldn't be at the
Yep.
same time all the time. But like one hind leg would just not quite fire, and then the other one wouldn't quite fire. He would crossfire all the time. Like he couldn't hold a lead. Like his hind end was just super wonky. And then he would go around at this crazy extension. So that neck just super bulged, his back would hollow out, and his hind end just wouldn't track behind him. Like he was, I feel like anybody would look at him and be like, "Hey, lame." It was not a subtle. It was not a subtle thing. But when he would flirt with the mares, and he'd get all swishy swishy and get
Yep.
all up or whatever, all of a sudden his body would come together, and the lameness, the weird steps would go away. So for the longest time, I wrote it off to testosterone because I was like, well, a steady horse will suddenly become very sound to bang something. Like they're men. It doesn't matter. Like all problems go out the window. So I wrote it off to that for a long time. And then I started watching him basically do that same posture, but in a relaxed place. So when he was just like, he kind of like the sun was out and he had a good roll and he was just feeling really good. It was like a good day for him. And he'd kind of go into what we call pillar one, and he would be sound.
Yep.
And I was like, I wonder if I can mimic that. I wonder if I just put him in that position in theory, and we worked in that position. If I tried to get,
Yeah.
yeah, like we'll just see. And so I would go out and I would like use cookies and I would hand target him into that pillar one position. So for those that don't know, it's basically looking from the external. I was just like, where can I put his head where his neck isn't bulging anymore, where that, that ventral neck is nice and soft and jello-y and open at the AO joint, because when he'd close, he'd get kind of contracted. But if I had him open and this was jello-y and soft, he just started moving sound. And so I would go out there every day, a couple times a day with a cookie, and I'd hand target him and would put him in this posture. And what was interesting was not only did his body development start shaping into that and not being so stuck in extension with this big, huge bulge, but his overall behavior started softening. And it was like when he was in that relaxed state that they naturally put themselves into, like, there's a study with kids where if you make kids go and stand in a corner with their arms crossed like this, their behavior gets a little bit worse. But if you uncross your arms and you stand just in a nice relaxed place for the same amount of time, your mood gets better. Like there's actual studies around this kind of stuff. And I'd known
I
about
have seen the ones on using play. So I know you're very big on the play
they're
and
gonna play too.
engaging their brains with reward, and not to be mistaken for like full blown a plus, which is a conversation for another time. But the
Unless you're
play,
far.
and so the well, but she also does it very differently to most that I've
That's
seen.
why I say that. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So the play, and so would you say the arms crossed to arms down is a nervous system response?
Yeah.
Is that what? Yeah.
So what they're I'll have to go back and find it for you, but it's essentially talking about the fact that our posture plays a role in our mental health, which is
Okay.
very true. And I've known, like, I've gone through seasons of my life that have been really hard and depressed, and I'll start to slump forward a lot, and I'll be like a little bit more collapsed, and I'll just kind of be stuck in that. But like if I go to Pilates or go to yoga and I practice like going back to like more dancer stance, my mood changes. And that there's a
Oh,
big correlation between that. It's why there's some people that are like, before you think you're depressed and go on antidepressants, go to a gym for 60 days, genuinely,
yep,
and just see. Because when you start changing your posture and you start changing the way that your body fires, it changes your brain, it changes your mood, your hormones, all of it. And so again, observing him and being like, when either if it's in play sexy sexy time or if it's in down regulated chill time, either way he's using the same set of muscles. So he's in the parasympathetic essentially when he's using
yep.
these muscles. And so anyway, as his body developed and shifted and changed, all of his weird super like we can't handle him, or like god forbid I leave the farm anywhere because if he gets out everybody's dead. Like he got out one time and took down a 17 two-hand quarter horse thoroughbred that was like literally 3 times his size. Like Dragon was a pony, people know he was like maybe 14 3 15 hands when he was really big
Oh,
sexy time. Yeah, he was so is Milagro. Like they're foundational illusions, so they're actually what the size they're supposed to be. And yeah, dude, he just went out. He took that sucker to the ground on his knees on top of him, and I had to like break up a huge fight. Like bad, not giant walking liability is this horse. But so anyway, as his develop changed, those behaviors went away.
yep.
And that was the coolest thing. And when I watched that, I was like, I wonder if this is a fluke and all the weird shit in his hind end went away, which now I know correlated to like his psoas and his hind end. Like now I understand more of what happened. But when I saw that big of a change and what it did for him of all horses, and then I started playing it with other horses. And at this point in time, I had gone back to school for horses to be certified as a body worker. I gone back to school for humans to be certified as a body worker. I specialize in nerve compression for humans. I worked in a clinical practice with surgeons. Like, so I'd really like pour it into trying to figure out all of these things. And yeah, it just kind of blew up. Like I just kept having these really crazy changes. And then with the brachial plexus stuff in the shoulder with the nerve compression, I started thinking about again watching the horses and how they naturally like they like naturally kind of cross over their midline
Mm-hmm.
around turns. And I'm like, well, where the brachial plexus is and the nerves and all of that. And this is like I didn't even know that a thoracic sling was a thing. That was not a word that I had known. But I was playing with the nerves and I'm like, if we can get them to open up the shoulder so that they're actually,
Yep.
all four corners around a bend, in theory, that shouldn't be an issue. So then I went from pillar 1 to pillar 3 and started playing around with these two components of opening the shoulder, training abduction, and all of a sudden, these divots on the shoulders that every horse had started going away, and they were able to balance. And then their spine finally started having that nice curve around bends, and like, yeah, it just kind of blew up from there. And it was all very accidental. And I've spent the last however many years now just trying to like, why is this working? Why is this working? Why is this working? And even the last dissection that I did, I got even more information and more understanding of like why it's working. And it probably will never stop. But yeah, it all came from just, I think I think I just loved both of them enough to sit with it. I think that if it had just been like a regular, not to say that I don't love all the horses, but if it had been one that was just kind of like, not as big of a deal for me, I might not have like sunk my teeth in as hard. But these are my boys, you know? So
That is so cool. How did you go? I remember seeing a video. I think you were on the road. I think you might have been doing some clinics or some teaching or something, and you did a live video that you then shared to your page, just about you could see that it was you more processing the cool things that you had learnt and like the puzzle pieces that were sort of coming together for you. And you're like,
yeah,
I cannot believe this is life. I cannot believe that this is what I'm doing and how we got here. And it all sort of makes sense with what I'm seeing in these horses. How did you go about mentally processing, like, it's because it's kind of like a Mack truck to the face, this sort of information. It can be so overwhelming
yeah,
and then you go, well, everything that I thought that I knew, I didn't know at all. Like everything that I thought that I understood, I knew nothing. This is ridiculous. Like I probably had I'm going to say a pretty minor meltdown after I had my first or did my first Sharon May Davis dissection
yeah.
and looking at the body and the parts and how it works. And the horse that we had who had been offered to be our teacher that day, I don't, if anybody was to ask me this question, I couldn't answer it, but you've been through this a lot longer than I have. So, how did you cope with managing such an influx of conflicting on information to anything that you had like grown up to believe, like developed yourself into believing, and then sort of manage that with your own belief set
Yeah.
against what the body is showing you? How do you not just go, you know what? I'm out. This is fucked. This is all too much. My brain can't. There's no congruency here for me at all.
Yeah.
Talk me through a little bit of that.
You know, that's a really good question. I think I had it a lot easier than you and most people, in that my Mac truck to the face was when the body worker came out, and I realized that's a really great analogy. When I realized that all of the behavior I was training through was pain. That
Yeah.
sucked really hard, and I had quite the breakdown about that because like I care about them, you know, like I spend my life like they got me through foster care. They got me through all of these horrible things in my life. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been essentially like abusing these horses unknowingly, but still, you know, and that was really hard to sit with. And again, at the time, we don't have all the internet research. We have nobody else. She was the only body worker probably in the state. Like, it wasn't known enough for there to be like right now, I feel my heart really goes out for people right now because there's so much fucking information out there that's conflicting. And it's every time you go on Facebook, you just, you know, you scroll and every other post is saying something that's conflicting with another one. And that's atrocious. And I don't know how anybody's like, I don't know how anybody's doing it. That wasn't my reality. My reality was I saw the proof in the horses, and that's the only thing that I needed. And nobody was really talking about it or not talking about it, but I knew that it was real and repeatable, and so I just stuck with it and was like, this is something that I'm going to pour into. I know how to train, I know how to jockey, I know how to do all these things. Now I'm going to learn how to basically undo everything that I did to these horses and try to figure this out. So it wasn't so much a like, yes, my entire life was a lie, but it wasn't like I wasn't up against a lot of conflicting shit. It was like my own ego eradication, right? And then, you know, you listen to all of those stories about like from kids rehab to going through dragons rehab to developing the pillars through rehabbing him. At this point in my life, I'm now a body worker. I rebranded myself so hard that nobody knew I was a trainer. That I could even ride. You know, I would show up to these barns. And they'd be like, "Do you want to go for a trail ride with us after? Like, we have like basically the old nag of the barn. We can pony you. It's totally fine." And I would just play along. Like it was horrible. I was like,
It's
"Oh
actually
yeah,
so
that's
bad.
great." I'm like, "Do I?"
When I came to America,
Yeah,
I'd obviously never seen you ride or anything. It had all just been the sessions that we'd been having remotely.
yeah.
And I was the subject, or well, my horse with the people that were riding for me at the time was the subject of your teaching. And I'll never forget coming to America. I don't even remember what horse you swung a leg over. But Jesse and I were sitting there and we were like, this bitch can ride. You, like, you know how as soon as someone sits on a horse, you can genuinely tell
Yeah.
if they've got it or they haven't. And I remember Jesse and I just being like, wow, okay, well, she didn't let on that she was, you know, a little dressage diva out there in the arena. It
God,
was
this was
really
so funny.
cool.
And I know you guys, we laugh about this all the time because, like, I know how to train all the dressage movements because we do that for bridle horse stuff and cattle and all that. But, like,
Yep.
I don't want to be in the dressage ring. Nothing about that appeases to me at all. But I fancy people that do, and I think that that's great for them. But everybody thinks I'm a dressage trainer when they watch me ride and they do some bridle horse stuff.
I'm not surprised because I had the same thoughts. I was like, bitch, you have been hiding that.
Nope, no.
And you got on, might I add, for everyone watching and listening, she got on bareback in a bareback pad with no stirrups, no nothing, literally on a horse she'd never ridden before. And we were like,
it's fine.
okay, she's either literally insane or far more skilled than she has led on to any of us about how she rides.
I'm gonna pat myself on the back one step further on that. And that, how old was Rhythm when you came over? 4 months,
Yeah,
5
baby,
months.
wouldn't even been 6 months old. Yeah.
So I was still an Oregon snow globe on my insides.
Yes.
I had no core.
The first horse you rode after Rhythm joined us.
I probably.
Yeah.
No, the first one that I sat on was in Washington, but also a horse that I had never been on and probably should not have been the first horse that I sat on, but I was trying to help him. Anyway.
Madness.
Yeah, so No, and I did. And the reason why I did it, and you'll understand this because you understand marketing, is it's like, as a trainer, it's really cutthroat out there. And
Yeah.
everybody who's coming in trying to help out, nobody's actually interested in collaboration. They're coming in to help out so they can steal all your clients. That's it. That's the only reason why a trainer would do anything. So for me, from a body worker standpoint, for one, I didn't know that I ever wanted to go back to training anyway, so it was irrelevant. It didn't matter. For two, I wanted to get my hands on as many horses as physically possible so I could try to figure this out. Like, I was like case study after case study after case. I was like psychotic about it. And in order to do that, I needed to be non-threatening to these competition barns. I needed to be non-threatening at all, which means if I just come in as a body worker, which is essentially a groom to most of these barns, they don't really see you in any way other than somebody that comes in as a spa day. You're not a horse person. You know, there were 2 people that graduated out of my class the same time as I did that had never put a halter on a horse before when they went to bodywork school. So same credentials, same school, same graduation date, and yet we're very much not the same. So they don't know anything. So anyway, I rebranded myself specifically that way so that I was seen as non-threatening, so that I could get my hands on as many horses as possible. That was it.
Yep.
And it was brilliant. It worked really well. And then so we're going through all of that, following back to the answer to your question, because I was chasing this thread and I was having these results like over and over and over again. And again, like the only thing that I needed to figure out was why this was working. And like results are my love language, full stop. Like I don't give a fuck why. I don't care. I just, if this is working, I will want to figure out why later so I can better explain it. I can better educate it. But you're not going to tell me that I'm wrong when the horse is telling me that I'm right over and over. Like, it just doesn't, I am so stubborn that way. And so that being said, because this was my journey and it was so long and it was really me just pioneering, like Audrey DeClue wasn't even talking about it. You could Google nerve stuff in horses and there was nothing at all back then.
Yep.
So for me, there wasn't conflicting information because I was tracing something that didn't exist and I was tracing something that nobody was talking about. So I didn't deal with what you guys are dealing with because it was just a very different way of coming around it. Yeah. Yeah, I do feel really bad for everybody that's coming at it because like I have the knowing because I found it and I chased it and I watched it. You guys are having to put trust in these other people against the entire industry, essentially, be shamed, be ridiculed, be fired. That's a lot.
Which is probably a bit of a perfect segue to talking about Bailey,
Yeah.
who I emailed you about I dug up the email that I sent you the other day and said, do you remember this?
So cute.
Back in 2020, and not really knowing where to go to next. So I'd had multiple vets review him. We did all the things, the injections, the blah blah, and in hindsight, the injections for actually no good reason, literally none. And knowing what I know now, would never do that again. But what I thought would be cool to talk with you about is just showing the video of what he was like to give people sort of a better understanding of what this bigger picture of discomfort can look like in horses that are genuinely sweethearts in every 6 ways of handling, but then they would have these, would you call them like outbursts? There would be some sort of explosion or some sort of behavioral thing that would pop up that would then make the team go, oh, well, there's definitely something bigger going on here. And it can be challenging when you can find nothing really clinically. So let's talk through that.
Oof. Sweet love.
So it was that hopping in the hind end that really caught my curiosity,
It
I
hurts
think.
me so much watching it still. It just,
Yeah. And so this, for everyone that we're talking with, and I'll play it again for those who want to have a better look. This was not a regular thing. So this would come out of nowhere, and then he'd sort of like continue on his merry way. There was also of interest, he was always very, oh, and he's got bar shoes on as well for all the bar shoe lovers that have vets and farriers say that the bar shoe is the holy grail. Literally, you couldn't pay me to put a bar shoe on a horse. And I think it was quite interesting in how he would warm up in the morning, so first rides of the day, and he would be excellent. And then he wasn't. He was excellent and then he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always very fascinating to me to see that sort of come about, which is what got me going, well, there's something else happening here that we have missed. So I'm going to cut to very quickly the feet. So this is a front foot and this is a hind foot with no shoes on.
Oof, baby.
Our first, honestly, now, so I have completed my advanced distal limb certification now with EPC in Canada, which was a phenomenally intense, rigorous course, 3 mornings a week from 6 o'clock, study before work. It was bananas. But what I learned out of that was absolutely incredible. And so now I can look at these pictures with a fresh set of eyes, because I was told here in the top pictures that it was his confirmation. Nothing wrong with these feet, the bull nosing, the fact that his heels are basically on the ground, that coronet band line would be going straight up to the elbow. All of this warping was all totally normal, I was told, which is just bananas. But how sound he came in the glue-on shoes was quite miraculous, but we couldn't keep them on. So you can see here, like the nails are quite low because his hoof wall was incredibly brittle from being trashed for so long. Nails weren't holding in. And now that I know what I know, like, you would cast that and you'd have a much better result to give the hoof wall some stability. So that was quite interesting. And I definitely knew that there was something off with the feet, but I didn't know why. And I had 3 different vets and multiple master farriers. That's what they're called over here, all say there's nothing wrong with his feet. He's being shod to the best of his conformational ability. This is the horse's problem. Like, this is just going to be it forever. Put a bar shoe on it. And that really wasn't the case at all. So I will be keen to talk with you too shortly about how we both sort of piece together how significant hoof health is into a functional thoracic sling. Because I think
Bailey was a big deal for me. Bailey probably, I would say that he probably genuinely started me on it, because if I think about it, I can't think of a time before him that I paid that much attention to the feet. I think that it was really the catalyst for me too, because it just wasn't on my radar at all. I don't think really ever. I mean, like, I could look, like, I don't think I ever really saw his feet. Like, I could look at those pictures and I feel like I would have seen those pictures and been like, those look pretty bad, but I wouldn't have been able to tell you like what specifically. Kid had a club foot his whole life. He was always high-low. And, it's worth mentioning too for everybody. So he had EPM. He was my guinea pig. He had high-low forever. He had all of these things. And at 22, before we put him down due to this horrific onset of the melanomas, I mean, like, the melanomas were shoving out of his ribs. Like, you could, it was so bad. I decided to get him x-rayed. I took him to university because I was convinced he had ECVM because of the high-low and because of everything else. And he was half thoroughbred. So why not? He was a native dancer grandson, and native dancer, apparently, like, that line's a really big one. And I was like, I just want to know. So I took him up to university. We had neck, back, skull, elbows, hocks, all x-rayed. And that son of a bitch was completely clean. And he did not have any arthritis. He had like very, very mild things that like wouldn't even, the vet was like, I don't understand how this is his imaging at 22. And I was like, maybe I wasn't as bad off in my old things as I thought that I was. maybe it was okay.
Literally.
So anyway.
So I've got a cool picture here, and I think this is real for both of us, where we sort of met up on this trajectory of hoof health and the link to posture. So at the time, I had reached out to Yogi from the Equine Documentalist to help me better understand. He was one of the only people that was really talking about NPA and its relevance to posture. And he has since gone and done a thesis like a madman in the connections of NPA through to posture, hock, all spinal health, the whole lot, which is a phenomenal contribution to the industry, not only in farriery but also in rehabilitation.
Oh man, yeah.
So kudos to you, Yogi, for getting that done. That's just bananas. So I'd reached out to Yogi. I'd reached out to another guy in Australia who was talking a lot about NPA and hoof health. And I remember talking to him initially before I sent him any x-rays, where he made a big post one day and said, you know, steel shoes are terrible. Open heel shoes are terrible. I've never seen a horse have a healthy hoof in an open heel steel shoe. And I commented on it and I was like, well, I've got one. It wasn't this one, mind you. I've got one. And I've got access to a barn of like 40 odd horses who are in open heel steel shoes and they don't have unhealthy feet. What do you mean? And he said, send me some pictures. And so he sent me I sent him through the pictures of these horses' feet, and he wrote back to me and had marked them up and did the outline of what the hoof was in red or something, and then did the drawing of what it should be in black. And my brain was just like, I have been lied to. I have been absolutely lied to from all of these people, because I can, now that he like put it in a picture for me, I couldn't unsee it. I was like, oh my God, this is fucked. This is so bad. And that was really the beginning of the end for me with getting onto the learning about feet. And then Bailey definitely cemented that for me quite significantly with feet and posture. And for those looking on the screen, this was an 8-week difference.
Yep.
8 weeks. That's unheard of for that level of muscling. And I run Accelerate Equine Therapeutics now. I've got a muscle and top line builder called Apex. I still have people say to me, that's an absolute load of hogs. Well, that horse hasn't put on that amount of muscle in that period of time. I promise you, if you have the building, if the foundations are right, they absolutely can. They have like triple the volume of muscles than we do, and they move them all the time. They are working them all the time. So you can see he's really camped under. He's super pointy. His neck looks like a plank. It's really shoved into his shoulders, and you can sort of see that dysfunction there. And I get that he's got a saddle on, but it really is quite astounding.
Also,
and then
look at
even
his
if you look
expression.
at the correct, yeah, very grimacing, I would say, sort of just standing there waiting in anticipation. And as you can see, we've done all the bands, we've done all the things. We got sold to by the physiotherapists, and I even video recorded those sessions so I could look back and study and learn more. And not once was there a single mention of a thoracic sling health. It was all about stabilizing the hind end through this proprioception tool. But the thing that it leaves out, the secret sauce, is if the hind end can't come through, if the front end can't lift and get out of the way, like you have to have functioning hind and front. It has to come together. So 8 weeks difference. And then he died 3 weeks after this, or 2.5 weeks after the bottom picture, which was truly horrifying. But and you can see we've got the formal on there, which is what we were showing in the previous picture. And for those who don't know what that is, it's basically a mold that they create for a healthy foot that's got a solar arch, big solar depth in it to reduce the vibration, and you pump the holes around it with a acrylic silicone, and it creates like a full prosthetic basically for the whole hoof.
Mhm.
And then they wear that off over time, ordinarily on the toe, because that's how they're sort of moving their patterns, but keeps them very, very sound with the inbuilt, like putting on what's that basketballer's shoe brand, like
Like the
the
Nike.
Jordan Air. Yeah, giving them wings in a different way, and then teaching them how to move their body, which I was learning through you, was something that was the extra complement onto what that really looked like. So that was something that I found very, very mind blowing, that then put me on wanting to complete my distal limb certification. So how have you really observed that, I guess, with the hoof health to posture link to, it really is an escalation pathway for the horse, and they're never really lame from one compensation. I
Mhm.
have found there's always multiple. How did you go about helping to piece that together? And then how do you manage that today? Because I know that you haven't done the hoof health training like I have. You've been a bit busy. But
I only need to be
I
good at
know
one
that,
thing. I can resource to other people. I just frantically text you things like, what the fuck is going on with this?
yes, I'll never forget when you had your first hoof podcast conversation. I think it was with Alicia, and you were like, "These are all the questions. Am I going to say the right things?" I was
I
like,
was
"You'll be
like, why
fine.
do
You'll
they
be
want me
totally
on this?
fine."
I don't understand. And you're like, no, like it's necessary because it's all linked. Like you have to do this. And I'm like, not it. And I have since done 2 podiatry clinics since then. So here we
Correct,
are. Correct.
correct. So, is that something that you look at first now when you're like working with clients and assessing new horses? Is how do you fit the hoof health into the overall bigger picture?
I don't know that my eyes go straight to the feet first, but it is
Yep,
100% just because I'm so body oriented that I'm scanning like AO joint to hind end. Like that's my whole, I'm
yep,
looking really through like the spinal junctions. But I always basically from Bailey on, I have always been like, can I see the feet? And if it looks like something that is at, I can tell NPA. That's my big one. And I can see I'm pretty good at seeing like the medial lateral imbalances. Like if something's pretty significant, I can tell. And I just tell people that I know enough to be annoying. I know enough to
yep.
tell you that this is playing a huge role. And if we don't address this, this is not going to get better. The thing that was so cool about Bailey was that was not, I don't even know that I had like really heard NPA before him. I may not have. It wasn't
Okay.
something that was like really, again, like really talked about. Like Yogi really like brought that shit out. And when I saw Bailey, I saw the drop thoracic sling. I saw the negative angled spine. I saw what was going on in his psoas. I saw how stuck his lumbosacral joint was in extension. So I saw all of these things. And then we had the one session where all we did was work on his emotional regulation. And I don't even know that we got him to pillar 1 in that first one.
Not really.
We just worked on
Yep.
getting him to be
Base.
okay in his
Yep.
body, because
Yep.
Dragon had taught me is if they don't feel safe, like in very bare bones basics, they can't, like pillar 1 is the posture that the horse will go into if they're safe. And if they don't feel safe, they're going to be tense. So the very first thing that you have to do is like, does a horse feel safe in their body? And Bailey was super sweet and cuddly and all of those things, but he was very codependent and he really loved his mommy. And so he like, so we had to work on that first. So, and I just say this to say it's just important to note that like while neutral touch and that, Tara calls it attunement, same thing, like when while neutral touch and that the boundary stuff for the emotional regulation makes an incredible difference and we see big changes in the body in terms of relaxation of the fascia and their ability to have access to their bodies, it wasn't enough to make the changes that he had after the form of hoof, right?
Yep.
And so then you do the form of hoof and then you send me the pictures and I look at all those spinal junctions and I see the drastic change in his hind end and I'm like, holy shit, what?
Yep.
And then Yogi and all of this other, these things that have come out and realizing what is happening in the body when they go NPA like that. And it's pretty like there's no point. And I tell people that now all the time. I'm like, you can do all the exercises perfectly. You could
Yep.
be me and go out and nail them all, and it won't stick. It will not stick. It is not worth it. There's no point in doing it if the teeth are trash and the feet are trash. Like, those are the two things. Both of those are outside of my pay grade. I apologize profusely all the time because it is really, really, really hard to find good people that will balance them out
Yeah.
sometimes. Again, conflicting information. Like, I will tell you, so in the same way of, so you asked me like how I didn't just be like, what? I'm just not going to do this because of all the conflicting information. That's how I feel about feet to an extent, which is why I just whine to you and Heather sometimes about things, because
Yep.
I'm like, I've tried to an extent to like really, I always joke and be like, my ADHD won't let me, but like I'm smart enough that like I can figure it out. But I start down one thing and then it's just a clusterfuck of conflicting information. And I'm like,
Yep.
how I it's okay. I don't need to know. I don't need to know. I have people that know and it's fine.
I do better just not knowing. You just let me know.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I know the basics. I have people that I trust that I can call. That's fine. But I have dealt with it in that, and it is really, really overwhelming. And I tell people that when I go to the podiatry clinics, I said, just so all of you know, I only know enough to be annoying. And the only reason why that is because y'all don't get along. You should work on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So we had this huge change with Hoof. His body completely changed.
Yes.
And then what we did
Even in the 12 hours post the former hoof, I'll never forget after the lesson, we went and got the former hoof done and brought him home that night. And then I got sent a picture of him at about 9 o'clock, I think. And immediately, I think we got home at 6. It was 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I was like, oh, whoa. And even the guy who was dealing with my horses at the time, he was like, he looks different. I said, yeah. And I sent it to you and I was like, dude, what is this witchcraft and wizardry? What the hell? It was wild.
It was amazing. But yeah, so seeing that, now in hindsight, looking back, the former hoof lifted him up so that he wasn't so chronic NPA in the hinds, which backed off all of that tension in his hamstrings, which when I watch that video now, I'm like, that's sciatic for like, we can't diagnose it. We can't see for sure, but that sure looks sciatic-y to me. And it doesn't come out of nowhere. You see him coming around the bend, and at some point he goes to twist off that lumbar spine because he's not doing abduction. And it goes boom. And then, poor trying to hang on for his life, but he's also spinning him, which is making it worse. And so then he's hatcha. And it's just like, so that NPA backs off all of that tension. So then now there's no more in theoretical potential compression going over that. And then you combine that with the pillar work that's continuing to, help to relax the bad things and encourage the good things. And then I don't know if you want to show the after video, but it was a very small amount of time.
Yeah, it really wasn't. We didn't have anywhere near as much time in general, I think, with him. But your sessions were, I think we did 3 in total.
Yeah.
Which really, in the scheme of things, is not very long. But we'll get to talking about how less is more. Oh, perfect. I'm freezing. Oh, there we go. So there's still lots of commentary that I can make about headset and whatnot, and I'm not going to. For the purposes of this conversation, I really want to focus on the limb loading and landing and how much smoother the gaits look. And a lot more through, especially in those hind end mechanics. When I look at the hock, is something that I think really relaxed for him.
Well, and there's
everything about this.
A little bit of jello going on in his hamstrings. Like there's a little bit of that relaxation. You can see tone happening and it's not just so strapped.
Yeah.
He's also opening his pelvis a little bit around the corners instead of just turning off of his back, which is where that fire was coming from. So like when he comes into the bend, he gets into that outside shoulder and then he opens into that outside hind and he's not fishtailing, right? It's that fishtail move that really.
The one thing, what did you say? Pretzeling himself was what you spoke about a lot in our initial sessions. I'm buffering. It may not like how many things I'm doing at once. Yeah, I definitely, that was a good way of describing it, to sort of corkscrew his hind end out of the way to stop him
Yeah.
causing any other issues. Yeah, that was quite fascinating to sort of watch that unwind. And so much more has changed for me since this video. Like, there's no flashes anymore on any of the horses. Um, in fact, I'm lucky that they've even got nosebands on, to be honest. They're sort of there for decoration. They're not there because we use them, which is interesting. Our saddles have completely changed. Um, yeah, the everything about the back mechanic and being able to get the healthy lift, I is just turned up on its head.
Yeah. And
And even the tail swing.
yeah, he's actually got a little bit of movement in that finally.
Yeah,
Going
which
back to
was
me snubbing dressage, the other reason why I was able to get out of the Mack truck thing or whatever is because I had zero training on dressage at all. And that's important to note because it's really the dressage world that really preaches the back to front training over and over
yes.
and over again. And that just wasn't the world that I was in. I was in bridle horse and I was in gaming and fast things. So that wasn't like a language that I heard. So I didn't have that conflict of like, oh, but these people say. It just wasn't a thing it wasn't until I'd already been proving this stuff for a long time that all of a sudden people are saying these things. And I was like, what are you talking about? That's not how that works.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, but for you guys that are in the dressage world, that's just what everybody teaches.
Yep. And I'll never forget when I came over, there was a clinic participant who was a dressage
Yeah.
lady who had a very, very fancy horse. And at the time, it was just curious for me to observe the interaction. But now, in hindsight, I have a whole lot more empathy for what she was. I literally watched her brain get scrambled in
Mhm.
real time.
Yeah.
It was
It's horrible.
excruciatingly uncomfortable for her, and very confronting to be told, and not even directly told, but like you can see that when the penny starts to drop and you go, holy shit, I don't think I should even be riding these horses. Why are we riding them? Why am I doing anything with them anymore? One of the pivotal points for me was going out to the barn, walking in and being like, looking at all these horses in these stables and being like, oh my God, I'm in a zoo.
Mhm. I call them
And
really
that
fancy
was just,
prisons. They're in a beautiful fancy
yes,
prison.
it was so revolutionary for me and really started to make me feel like I was not acting in congruence with anything that I was learning about the health of the horse. And when I say the health of the horse, I mean mentally, spiritually, emotionally, everything. The whole horse really started to just feel wrong. It all just felt very wrong. And I felt like a liar because
Mhm.
I was learning all of these wonderful tools and then still putting my horses in positions that flew in the face of exactly all the things that I was learning what not to do. So I found that very confronting. And I watched that happen in a confronting way for that lady that day at that clinic who had the very fancy horse who was tied up, bunched up 6 ways to Sunday that, you jumped on and were able to micromanage into getting him to move in a healthier way.
Mhm.
And watching her say, well, no, we train at, you guys have got different levels from a dressage perspective, but she was like, we're training at third or fourth level and we
Yeah.
do all this stuff. And these are all the things that we do. And watching her mind unfold in front of us was like heartbreaking, to be honest.
It is really hard. And it and like it goes in levels, right? Like you have that initial thing. And then, at the end of that clinic, she was like, would you potentially take him in for training? Like she was kind of pretty sold on it,
Yeah.
right? And I said yes. And then she went back home and was around her peers and her trainers and those things. And then I didn't hear from her for a year. And I was like, I figured I was never going to hear from her again. Then that horse got so bad that they ended up putting him down. And then she got another horse, and that horse started having the same problems that this horse had. And so she called me and she was like, hey, I didn't want to talk about it, but basically I went back and, I heard what you said and it was just really hard, but this was our environment. So we did these things. He ended up getting really lame. These other things happened. Maybe the training contributed, maybe it didn't, but we ended up having to put him down. So I bought this horse and the horse wasn't having these problems. And however many months into the training, the horse started having these problems. And she's like, so now this became like, I need to call you. And we started doing Zoom lessons, and the mare came a really long way really quickly. She was like fully on board. Everything was great. And then she's like, hey, I have to go on vacation. My trainer is going to come out and take a lesson from you to keep the horse going while I'm gone. Because she like pulled back from training even. She was like, I'm just going to do this for a little while and rehab the mare. And I gave the trainer a lesson. And it was like one of those, she kept telling me that these are things that she does all of the time. And I was like, but you're not doing it right now. So like, and I'm
I feel like, yeah, we could be absolutely telling some tales about my experience there too, because it was very, very similar. And every single time I would go out and be like, how are they going? Yeah, yeah, really good. And then I'd look at their bodies and I'm like, stop lying to me. I can tell that is not, they are not going well, because their body, I know this isn't it the title of a book or something? The body keeps the score.
thought it keeps the score.
It
Yeah.
sounds wanky to say that, but it is so true. And
But
so
it's
I
true.
go
They
out
don't lie. You see it right there.
best as I can. The horses keep going, they keep winning, and I'm like, well, they can't be that bad if they're winning. And then it's all just been this giant revelation of,
It's
well,
so hard.
but and then bring them home. They've all got neck dysfunction. They've all got like bulging undernecks and just absolute scapular disaster zone. I think I had 9 months of just doing rehab. None of my horses were seen. No one knew what they were doing. It was a freaking nightmare. But develop my skills. Yeah, we did that.
I think it's just really, really hard and again, because I didn't have dressage, I never rode my horses behind the vertical. That wasn't ever a thing that I did because, well, for one, my foster dad probably would have killed me. For two, it just wasn't, that's just not what we did. We wanted them open, and I could feel, yeah, and I could feel as a rider when they curled that I didn't get the lift that I wanted. So like I always kind of rode this way because I got the very huge privilege of riding horses that were trained really well as a child. So my feel was developed on really well trained, balanced horses, which I did not know what a privilege that was until the last few years. But so I never rode horses that way, and the people that I was around didn't ride horses that way. So that wasn't a image that I had to like undo. And what I find a lot in the performance world, and this just happened in my New York clinic too, and the trainer was lovely and she's very sweet and very classical minded. And in the lesson, I try to always have the trainers involved when I'm teaching their students. And in the lesson, she's telling me all the same words that I say. Like she knows, she's aware, she's very, like everything was really good. And I was just sitting back watching her student warm up and I was like, just ride like normal. I just want to watch. And the horse was very closed the whole time. And so we started with bit signals and kind of helping the horse find up and open and relaxing. And he was rooting a little bit because it was a range of motion that he's not used to. And I watched the trainer be like, well, how long does he have to go like this before he can go back to normal? And I'm like, well, this should be normal. And everything that you just told me suggests that this would be normal for you because you're saying this is something that you're working on. And I just gave you the fucking golden keys on how to do it. It's quite simple. And then but then she was like, but he's not round enough and he's not going to get scored well because he's not round enough. And I'm like, and that's just not the world that I came from. But what I'm learning, and maybe you can speak to this better, is that when you have that, I think that's where the cognizant dissonance comes from because you have a trained eye for round and what's winning and what's correct and what everybody's looking for. So when you would go out to the barn and you'd say, are my horses going well? They think that the horses are going well because that's the metric, that's the lens. And so again, I don't have that. So I have a hard time bridging that. I'm like, what are you talking about? Why like you can't see that? But they really can't for, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's not intentional. They're not intentionally setting out to, hurt or injure or do any of those things.
No.
My frustration came from, well, I'm giving you all of this learning and I'm giving you all of this information and you're saying that you understand, but I'm looking at the bodies and the bodies are telling me that you've been telling me some porcupines and that's not true.
Right.
So it's been really quite challenging to work with that. And even the behind the vertical, I'm going to call it a thing because it definitely became a thing. I don't, you will remember when I launched 6 bar therapy and used Bailey's
I
silhouette because
know.
it was
I
the only
was like,
photo that I had and he was dead. And I got, not directly, might I add, you got publicly slaughtered for endorsing a silhouette of a horse whose nose was behind the vertical and not even in a significant way,
I
might
would
I
say he was
add.
closed. He wasn't even like,
Correct. It was an absolute joke. And the little hate brigade that came on board, who clearly still don't have lives because they're still the hate brigade
it's
about
the same 10
everything.
women. It's fine.
And I just get to the point where I've been like, well, I'm going to take a little creepy creep stalk at your profile. And then I look at your horse and I'm like, that's not something I'm going to aspire to. So I don't really care what you have to say other than you being just a vicious, mean girl. It's just gone one after another after another. But a functioning neck is something that I have had to learn like extraordinarily to identify. And again, putting myself on the chopping block a lot here today. It's kind
Mhm.
of freaking me out. Um, winning.
Yep.
All,
Note all the
like,
ribbons. Yeah.
I look at this now and I'm like, the poor neck. And so this was the process of the undoing. So you can still see these muscle divots here, which
Mhm.
all of the horses came home with. All of them, all 5 of them came home with
Mhm.
this. And one of them wasn't even ridden. So, like, make that make sense. And so, as this started to get a bit better, and you can see the rhomboid still a bit ropey, but definitely relaxing, but we still have all the, I don't even know what I call this when I see that it's very shallow in amongst the neck at the front of the scapula. It's just something that I observe in dysfunctional thoracic slings. I haven't come up with a cool name for it yet.
I think it's just the atrophy of the serratus more than anything.
Yeah, from
What's
not being
interesting is
used.
I
And
found, I don't remember if I showed it to you. This was a couple of years ago, but I'd found this old horse training manual that's like 100 years old. And it's just like a, not anything crazy famous, but he talked about, there was like a little section in there that was just like, really pay attention to the triangle in front of the neck. If that's hollow, it's bad.
really?
And I was like, yeah, buddy. Yeah, just, because people know, like, it's like people have been talking about it, but it's just, again, it's just like a thing. But he's like, yeah, pay
Yeah.
attention to that triangle in front of the shoulder. And I was like, yeah, that's so cool. Woo!
And then excuse my little Christmas get up. This is a fun thing that I'm going to be
You're
sharing for our Christmas
the most
festivities.
adorable thing on the planet.
I know, but how much more functional and full and yeah, everything about the next set now. And we've still got improvement to work on. She will forever be something that I need to help manage because her default is to stress. She's
Mhm.
a bit of an anxious girly just in life and can relate. So, we probably bounce off each other there a little bit. But the change in the neck shape and the muscling and the much happiness of the pole. The other thing that we changed, you may not be able to tell here, is I moved to a cutaway headpiece.
Yep, that makes a
So it
big
cuts
difference.
around
The
enormous.
anatomical bridles are a must, I think. I think that they're just an
Yeah,
absolute.
they all have them now. They all don't get ridden in any straight cut headpieces at all. And that was also another weird spidey sense thing. So she didn't really like the bridle going on, and neither did Eli. He would always put his head up for the double and didn't want it going on. And then one day, it was just one of those wackadoo things that popped into my brain, and I was like, I think it's the headpiece. I don't think you like this headpiece. And so Bailey had a cutaway one. So I whipped it out. It's like different colored brown and everything and put it on Eli's instead. Oh, yeah, I will take the bit.
Hmm.
I was like, righto, you're all getting anatomical headpieces.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and
It's been wild.
I know that you're putting yourself on the chopping block, but you're also, again, like it's like it's why you're one of my favorite people to like refer people to around growth, because it's like it hasn't been easy for you. And I've watched you a little bit, and it's just like you'll get it, but look at what you've done. and look at that change in the neck. Like, that's incredible. Like, that's such a cooler story than mine even. Like, you literally did it. Like, you went through the fire of like, this is the world that I'm in, and like, this is kind of poppycock bullshit, to being like, no, I'm actually like, this is a real thing. And that's a way better story. And like, you can have way better conversations than I can, because to what the point of what I just said, like, I didn't have that. I didn't have that lens smack. I didn't have the environment of people that
Yep.
were telling me that. I didn't have any of that. So it was much different for me. And so that is the one place I have a really easy time sitting with people that are doing like poor training practices, because I did it and I get it. Like, I understand why everything that you're doing, what you think you're trying to get, I get it. And I have a better way of doing it now. So I have a lot of empathy for that. But I think the fact that I don't have the energetic resonance for that specific journey that you went on does make it harder for
Yeah.
me to relate to people. And you do. And that's really powerful.
Yeah, I've definitely felt like an outsider on a lot of things because the industry that I'm a part of doesn't see the same lens of things that
Yeah.
I see. And going to events now sometimes is quite difficult to just mind my own
Yeah.
business and
Yeah.
shut up and not look at the feet and not look at that neck and not look at and be like, I could really help you make that horse freaking phenomenal if you could put what you think you know aside and basically burn it to the ground and start fresh. And it's not a fun time, but I could help you do that if you wanted to.
What
So
do you say,
it's been,
though, like, in hindsight of like all of the things, correct me if I'm wrong, I might be delusional, but I feel like it's a lot less work and it actually takes a lot less time when you're doing it right.
so my horses get work 3 days a week for half an hour.
Because the hang up that people get into when I start being like, hey, we need to go back to walking for a little bit, we need to undo some of this and get that nervous system stuff figured out, they freak out and panic because they're like, if I'm not practicing my lead changes, if I'm not practicing all my laterals, if I'm not doing all these things, like, it's gonna go up in smoke. So I can't possibly just go back to this basic shit. And I'm like, so here's the deal though. Like, in my experience, the education of the horse doesn't go away. The horse is still going to know how to pick up and do those tempi changes when we've done 3 months of walking. That doesn't go away. The access that they're going to have to give you that, though, is going to be so much bigger. Like, I don't actually think
Yeah.
it takes more time. That's the thing that like, if I could drop a bomb on everybody and be like, here's one thing to know, you can do less work, so much less work, and the basics, and you're going to get so much further than what you guys are doing in your 60-minute, 5-day a week workouts. So much faster. It's crazy.
Yep. I would agree with that. So I definitely subscribed to the ridden 5 days a week, competed on the weekend. So, 6 days a week,
Yeah.
really, work them till they're sweaty. Like, if you're not sweaty, then you haven't done a good enough job. I have never done less. I have had a couple of horses here for rehab, and the changes that they have made I really need 8 weeks to make a pretty significant
Yeah, I
change
think
in a
that's fair.
horse. Yeah, and it's not because I'm working them every day. It's because I'm paying attention to the micro movements and I'm doing passive physio, so setting their feed bin at a certain height each
Mm-hmm.
day depending upon what their bodies are showing, putting their hay up on the top of a little bit of a slope so they get a traction stretch without
Yep.
even thinking that they're getting. So all of these incidental crafty ways of getting what I need out of their bodies to help them function better.
Mm-hmm.
I do more of that. I do more of plotting and scheming and how I can make them do
I
passive
love
physio
that.
without them knowing that that's
Plotting
what
and
they're
scheming
doing.
for the win.
I spend far more time. Like, I was talking to my chat GPT the other day and it said to me something that I'm really good at is that paying attention to the detail of the
Mm-hmm.
horse, and then I'm going into basically psychological warfare and how I can get a better result without like forcing them to do anything, but in a really incidental, incremental, and then before they know it, oh, look, they've got all this access to their hind end again. That toe drag is gone. The funny shoving their weight on that near side and not being able to move like a plank, gone.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things that sort of happen just from doing less. It's just nobody could have ever said to me 3 years ago, no, you'll work them way less and you'll get better results. And I would have been like, I think you're telling me some lies.
Yeah. I go out. I think I sat on Milagro the other day and thank God he remembers that he's broke, but I hadn't, well, because they're both really green. Like he and Ari are
Yeah.
very, very green, and green horses should have consistency. And unfortunately for my life,
Yeah.
that is not something that I can give them. But all through, I mean, and Sassy's broken in like a bajillion different ways. I'm so hopeful that when it's her time, we can dissect her because I'm just really curious what all she's been through and what her body looks like. But so I've got her who is just, I'm sure, tragically trashed on the inside. I've got Ari, who's had his own fair share of things. I've got Milagro, who's chronically hypermobile. Like he takes a lot of work to just have stability. So three very different bodies, three very different nervous systems. And I don't work with him hardly at all. And I go out there and I just need to do this for a post one of these days, but like they look so good. They look like they're just, they're fit. They don't have a negative angled spine. Their shoulders are nice. Their bodies look great. They're happy. But to your point, my environment has them set up. Like I've done the work with them. And so their bodies are in a place that they can do stuff. And then their environment is super supportive of them. So I don't really have to. Like whether or not they remember that they're, can pack a rider is one thing. But their bodies with doing nothing but scheming and crafting environment after, the rehab look better than most horses that are in full-time training. And I'm like, I don't know, man. And I love being lazy for sure. I'm just like, if I can work less and get better results, like if I like all I want is to work less and make more money. Like this is what everybody should be trying to do. It's the same thing for horses. Like this is great. Conveniently, I don't know if you've ever done Pilates, but I started doing Pilates recently. Um, I go twice a week. I don't do much in between those things. She works me out really hard, but all she does is basically like BTMM. Like it's all the same idea. It's incredible. My body has never felt better. I've only been doing it for a month and I'm like I am seeing more changes going twice a week with a professional being like, I mean, she has to grab me and be like, bitch, you're not straight. This is straight. And now you do it. So having somebody spot me and do everything correctly twice a week, I'm seeing better changes than I had been. I've been trying to rehab my body from rhythm for 4 years and I haven't been able to do it.
Yeah.
And it took 1 month of twice a week with correct core work. And I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah. I have had a couple of sessions with Tara for Nancy to help her with her limb loading to get a bit more table even spacing, literally only in walk with play for a half halt for so like pillar two, being able to rock back and those sorts of things. And we had a really cool session the other morning a couple of weeks ago where it was just focusing on helping her learn that she can come through and isn't going to trip, isn't going to be poorly balanced without like shoving her weight, like sort of crooketing one of those shoulders, dropping to the outside because she was uneven, all of those things. And Tara said then, because I had said, I don't feel like I'm doing much. I fell into my own trap. I was like, I'm not doing much. And she says, yeah, we've just given her like a 30-minute Pilates session, girl. She is tired. Like we don't need to do any more.
Tired more than anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's been quite fascinating to see the less is more approach, but more precision.
More precision.
What you do.
Yes. That's
the
thing is it's like I think people are working so hard, but they're doing I don't want to be, they're doing it all wrong, but like kind of, it's like you can be, you're trying all this stuff, but like it's not precise. They're not using their core. They're not really in their balance and in their mind. And if you can just do a few of those, the body wants to be in balance. Like they want to be in balance. And so if you set them up and support them, man, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a wild ride. For those who don't know where to find you, what's the best way for people to follow along with your training, musings, thoughts, offerings, that sort of thing? Where do they find you?
My best musings are on Facebook because I'm old and it's what I know. So for general free content and just like my thought process on things and things that I post, Facebook is going to be your best bet. My website is balancethroughmovementmethod.com. And we're just going through another revamp of it just for end of the year stuff. And that's where all of the courses are, how to book sessions with me and any of the trainers. really important to note that it's updated frequently with a directory. So anybody who's like legitimately a trainer is on there, or legitimately a nerve release practitioner, if they decided to not keep up with their certifications or there was some kind of a fallout, they're not on the website. So always I have frequent people that are doing BTMM clinics and all kinds of things, and I've never given them a lesson. So it's good to know. Double check on the website. I do have an Instagram. It's Traveling Horse Witch is the handle. I'm not on there a ton, but I'm on there a little. So anyway.
And is your Pillar One still available for free for the public?
I called Tista and I begged and pleaded for her to come back for just like a day to try to fix all of those things because people were having a hard time finding it because I had somehow messed something up, which was inevitable.
Okay.
And so she came back and she not only fixed it, but she also put it on the website so people can just find it on the website now too.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's much easier.
I think that is a phenomenal tool for everyone. Like everyone needs to go and understand. And again, I'll preface this by saying you will feel like you're doing nothing, but I promise you, you are doing a whole lot of things by doing less.
And
yeah,
I mean the basis of what we really try to get people around to understand is like honestly just like correct nervous system regulation, horse handling. And so there's a lot of people that find Pillar One by doing cookies and hand targeting and things like that. But our end goal is to be that relationship to contact, to be like, is a horse okay to be touched? Does the horse understand halter signals? Can I soften them into different movements? Because that's really, to your point of the passive physio, the best way to rehab a body is to be able to guide them without tension. And so if your horse doesn't have a following feel, and they're bracing to everything that you're doing, then you're already working against yourself. But if you can have that following feel, you're going to get access and then you can be precise. And so you really you have to rise as a horseman to do it. And I think that that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. I cannot thank you enough. This has been such a cool conversation
It's been so
to
much
have
fun
with you today. I know. I think we could really, I've got like a whole topic list of things that I'll have to get you back
We'll do more.
to talk more about. Thank you again. I truly appreciate it. And I
You're
hope you
welcome.
guys all got something out of this session.